Well, here it is. First thing in the morning here, I'm trying to actually get ready for work, but I got sidetracked with trying to figure out what I want this wheelbase to look like on the old go-kart project here. I think that's pretty close to the length that I want it. I just got stuff propped up here just as a point of reference. Let me stand back and look at her. This thing's gonna be pretty cool, man. And I also have these shocks that I picked up pretty cheap. I think once I build this swing arm here, these are gonna mount in there, something like, maybe not that. I don't know. We don't know what the angle's gonna be yet. These may have to turn around to get the angle that I need. Probably something similar to that. Looks pretty cool. On the front, I haven't decided what kind of front suspension I'm gonna do yet, but these may be in here, you know, in the front, off the top of the wheel like that. Of course, my center of gravity is gonna be a little higher because it's not gonna sit that low. It'll be low, but it's not gonna be that low. I'd like to give it, you know, maybe make the center of my rail just below the center point in the tire, so the chassis will ride just about just below the center of the wheel. Give it a good low center of gravity so she's not tippy, but you'll still have some clearance and be able to tool off through the woods with her a little bit, you know. We got a sand pit next door. Buddy of mine has a sand pit over there, and we can test it out hopefully here pretty soon. I don't know, probably be middle of summer anyway before I get to do that, but I think the exhaust is gonna look awesome sticking straight out the back like that. If you're behind me, man, you're gonna get a face full of my exhaust. And I want to build some fenders for it so they kind of radius up and continue at the same angle as whatever the exhaust is going to end up being. So I keep all these lines. It's a go-kart. I know it doesn't have to be super cool, but I like keeping my lines kind of heading to the same point. It's going to be pretty sleek looking, man, when she's done. And then once I get all that done, we got to figure out a color for this thing. I don't even know what color to paint this thing. And that'll be a little something I'll teach you how to make this galvanized paintable. Because I don't know if you guys have had any experience in it or not, but if you just paint this in a short period of time, the paint's gonna be coming right off it. So there's a preparation for this to get paint to adhere to it. We'll put a good paint on it so that it lasts a long time. We don't want it to be rusting out on us. And also, we're gonna make a couple areas. I'm gonna drill some holes, like just a little tiny, like 1/8 hole. Certain spots that are gonna serve two purposes. One of them is gonna be an anti-rust agent that I'm gonna put inside the tubes. as well as if it's like sitting in here, if you look, my floor is damp a lot of the time. If it's rainy outside, my floor is damp. Concrete floor just absorbs moisture all the time. So you get a lot of, like my lift, it's rusty where it meets the floor. You know, no matter how many times I clean this and paint it, I do it about every couple of years, it slowly comes back, rusts up, blah blah blah. So when the thing's sitting here in the shop, I don't want it absorbing moisture and getting condensation inside this pipe, because that will rot it out from the inside. And you'll think that it's all fine and good. You'll be riding it along and you'll hit a bump, the thing will break in half because it's rotted out. And we don't want that. So we're gonna make it so that you can squirt some WD or some sort of fluid film or something in there as a anti-rust agent once in a while, just a point of maintenance. You know, make it so that we can hand this thing off to, I don't know, other people, you know. You can see on the top, I'm not quite square. And this bend here is different than this bend here, but I'm not gonna fix that. I'm just gonna adjust the top of that so that it's square, level, so that it doesn't look quite as wonky as it does. And then, yeah, we got a lot of work to do yet, but this thing's coming along. Build that motor mount. I don't want to build it to a point where I can't get the motor out of it either. You know, I want to build it so it's serviceable. So the thing explodes, you know, you just throw another motor in it or whatever. Pretty sure that's about where the axle's going to ride. I don't think I want to go any further forward with it. I think that's pretty good. Obviously, the longer you make it, the smoother your ride is going to be. You're going to get more bounce out of it because of the leverage due to the length and blah blah blah. But I like to keep it short so it's maneuverable. You know, you don't want it so long that if you're on a trail or something cruising around, you don't have to back up to make a corner or something. You don't want any of that. You want to keep it tight. It's going to be a little bit longer than say like a 90cc ATV. Actually, I think it's going to be longer than my 350 Yamaha, to be honest. A little bit, but not much. I want it maneuverable, but I also don't want it to be like riding in a buckboard wagon, you know. So I gotta load up my car, go to work, do a couple things. Maybe I'll get back on it today, but you'll know here in a minute if this video continues or if I post another one later on it. We'll see. Anyway, stuff you can do your own self. Another thing I want to tell you guys, because you weren't here for the when I started building the chassis of this thing. All this is 1-inch EMT electrical conduit that I got right here at the hardware. And a lot of people that have seen this rig, they're like, ah, man, that ain't gonna work. This thing's gonna bend. It's gonna be a piece of junk. You're wasting your time. You should have bought molly tubing or blah blah blah. Well, molly tubing is like extremely expensive in my book, and we're not putting like super high horsepower in this thing. You know, you're not gonna have a 350-pound rider in this thing, driver in this thing. I'm building this thing for my kid, man. You know, I'm building this for who he's a 6-year-old at the moment. You know, so I really doubt that it's going to get a whole lot of abuse. But being a conduit and not really a structural steel, what we're going to wind up doing is throughout this thing we're going to, you know, have to put webbing in here. You know, we're going to have webbing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And what we're doing is building a truss. And that's where we're going to gain our strength. It's not through the wall of the tubing that's going to give it its strength. It's the design in the webbing. And as we build the truss, as you know, anyone who's ever been in any kind of construction trade, if you look at a truss, you're holding up thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds with nothing more than a 2x4 on edge. You know, you can make a single 2x4 so strong by simply creating a web. So that's my theory behind this, is we're gonna basically build a truss, and that's where we're gonna get our strength. It's not through the tubing itself that's gonna make it strong. It's the design of the structure that will give it its rigidity. And I want to keep it light. I don't want like a heavy DOM tubing that you can, you know, run over with a car and it's not going to bend. Yes, things probably will get dinged and bent and blah, blah, blah. But also, there again, it's a piece of conduit that you can buy at the hardware. You bend a piece, well, you cut it out, you throw a new piece in. It's really, you know, you can look at it a lot of different ways, I guess. But anyway, that's my that's my theory behind that. And instead of spending $1,000, $1,500 on a pile of moly tubing, you know, there's maybe, I don't know, maybe $100, $110 and an EMT conduit, 1-inch EMT conduit. I'll let you know if it works or not. I'll be the first one to tell you that, you know, I made a mistake. But at this point, I really don't think I have. I think this is going to be strong. And like I said, we're going to make holes to allow moisture to weep out. And those holes will also serve as a point of maintenance. So maybe moly tubing wouldn't require the maintenance that this will, but it also didn't require the pocketbook that moly tubing would require. So there's that. I'm gonna go strap down my ladder and get to work. Do it your own self.